Today on SportsTalk Philadelphia, remember that great feeling you had when the Eagles beat the Cowboys in overtime? Well, you can crumple that up into a ball and throw it out the window. We go over the Eagles crumpling to the Dolphins at home. Then we go from bad to worse as we try to find bright spots on a winless Sixers team. Finally, some good news. The Flyers won a game last week. The bad news? It was the only game any of the major sports teams in Philadelphia won since our last show. We try to remain positive talking about the orange and black. Look, I know it'll be tough, but stay tuned because Sports Talk Philadelphia starts right now. Let's go. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Sports Talk Philadelphia. I am your host, Tyler Harper. And as I said in that intro, it's tough to remain positive right now, but let's get through it together, ladies and gentlemen. And we're going to start with Eagles Talk, and we've got two great guests. We've got Anthony Fleet. You might not recognize him. Nice little change up there.
Yeah, chopped it down a little bit.
Was time?
Yeah, it was about that time.
And we got down at the end, we've got Jordan Green and
What's up?
let's talk some Eagles, huh?
Unfortunately.
Do we have to right now?
We kind of have to. It's all a sports show. So let's take a look at the stats for Eagles Dolphins. This game wasn't that great. We were thinking it was going to be a nice win back to back. Not exactly. 2019 was your final. Dolphins with the win at the link. Ryan Tannehill 20 for 36, 217 yards, 2 touchdown passes. Jarvis Landry 7 catches, 52 yards, 1 of those touchdown receptions. And Rashad Jones with the interception in the end zone once Mark Sanchez came into the game for an injured Sam Bradford to seal the win in this one. Let's be real here. The Eagles had this game. They had a nice lead. They were up 16-3 at one point, and the Dolphins just found ways to capitalize on Eagles' mistakes and go in and just steal the win outright from the Eagles here. Fleet, we'll start with you. Let's be real. How much does this damage this season? Because you come off an emotional high, beating the Cowboys in prime time in their stadium, and then you come back to this, and obviously not flattering at all.
Right. It's certainly been an emotional roller coaster as Eagles fans having to watch this team. But the three of us at this desk, we have to realize this team just isn't very good. They're a mediocre team. Them losing that game just signifies they're a bad football team. This team, when the Eagles win, we kind of take for granted, we kind of forget about their flaws. You kind of forget, just say it out loud. They have a mediocre quarterback. They have a running back who's not producing nearly to the magnitude that he was last year. You have a below average, to say the least, receiving core. And you have an offensive line that's struggling to protect these mediocre quarterbacks. So how can you possibly even expect for this team to perform so well? It's mind-boggling to just watch, because we always fool ourselves into thinking maybe this is a good football team when they win a game. We sort of feel we feel good. We're like, wow, this team maybe they can make this run. Maybe this win will propel them to go forward, and maybe they can string together a couple of wins. But they're just not a good football team. They're not good. They can't play consistently, and a lot of their flaws, you could only hide them for so long. They could probably put together a good game, maybe a good couple of quarters that can help salvage a game. But overall, this is just a very bad football team, and you can't expect consistent play. And as Eagles fans, we just have to start to just realize this team's going to win a couple of games and then lose a couple of games, and it's just going to be the same high and low that we feel every week.
I think you're saying what everyone's thinking, if they haven't been saying it already. I mean, I completely agree with that. And Jordan, I'll ask you to comment on that too. But also, I mean, Fleet said it. This team, let's face it, they're not exactly a great football team, but thank goodness the NFC East isn't a great division, right? I mean, besides the AFC South, let's face it, this is probably the worst division in football.
And what's unfortunate about the Eagles situation is that they're not really taking advantage of it right now. After a rough start, you think the one thing they would want to place an emphasis on the games right now to make up ground since the division is so bad. But like Anthony said, there's just nothing consistent about this team right now, whether it's coaching, the offense on all levels, the skill players, even the defense, which we thought could be the strength of this team. Well, Ryan Tannehill isn't having a great year, and he seemed to do pretty well on Sunday. So there's a lot of questions that needs answering for this team. I think they really need to look themselves in the mirror. It's not their first bad or, I guess, surprising loss of the year. We could go back to the Dallas game. We could go back to the Carolina game.
The Washington game?
The Washington game. But there was something else about this game. They got out to this fast start, and you thought, okay, they're going to put them away. They're going to bury them. That's how the Eagles are. Yeah, when they score, they do it in bunches. But there's just no rhythms to this team. You know what I mean? What do they do well consistently at this point? I think
almost nothing.
I don't think we're going to get answers to any of these questions. I think this team just are what they are. They are who they are at this point. They're a 4-5 football team.
They consistently play bad. That's what they do. And they consistently put their fans through emotional turmoil, which is incredibly annoying to watch.
Yeah, and you mentioned emotional turmoil. Now more and more people are kind of starting to speak out, and they think, is Chip Kelly, who of course not only head coach but now director of football operations of this team, with Howie Roseman basically being ousted. I believe he's still with the team, but he's not in the GM role. I mean, Jordan, I'll start with you, and then we'll go to Fleet. How much is your trust in Chip kind of starting to shake a little bit?
I think he's a smart guy, but until he's less arrogant in his approach and he's more critical of himself and what he's doing, the Eagles' struggles are probably going to continue. You look at his record over the last, like 20 games, it's not good. I mean, Jeffrey Lurie's kind of a softy in that he'll let his coaches hang around for a while. Andy Reid probably stayed a few years too long. And it'll probably be the same with Chip Kelly if he does end up getting fired. I think he would have to get ran out of town and take a job elsewhere before he got fired. But he's got to be feeling the pressure. And that's why the talks around, the job at USC, the job at Texas, or wherever. Because he is a smart guy. But in the NFL, all the other coaches are smart.
Yeah,
that doesn't matter if you don't get the job done.
And Fleet, I mean, we've heard for the past couple years, like when he first took over the team, like, yeah, they made the playoffs, but they lost, and then they went 10-6, but they missed the playoffs. And what were people saying? Chip just needs his guys. He needs his guys. Well, for the most part, he has his guys now. I mean, I believe there's only like a single-digit amount of players who were around before the Chip Kelly era, and now, for the most part, he has his guys, and we're here. Here we are. We know where this team stands. Does this team need another year to kind of transition to his system to be all systems go, or should we be seeing better results right now?
Well, my feelings towards Chip Kelly are kind of mixed, but unfortunately, Eagles fans, they probably do need another year. And as Philadelphia sports fans in general, you might not want to admit, but they're sort of in a rebuilding mode. You forget this big roster turnover that Chip Kelly is ensuing with this team, and so you can't really expect him, like, because I don't think he has all of his guys that he really wants. He got rid of the guys that he didn't want, and so now he has. I feel like a lot of his players this year are kind of placeholders until next year, when I believe if in this offseason he has to start getting some of quote his guys, because the players that he has now, they're just not cutting it. And go ahead.
What's interesting is the big thing Chip Kelly said was we want to go from good to great this year. They were 10-6 the last 2 years. You saw something with the team, but they weren't complete yet. And then the preseason, we had the Green Bay game, Sam Bradford, the prodigy out of Oklahoma. But I think we were misled into maybe the great, like Anthony said, it might come later. I don't know if that was part of the plan or if they just expected to be a lot better out the gate. So, but the fact of the matter is, Chip Kelly, the personnel guy, he's not doing himself any favors at this point, because a lot of the players he's brought in, especially you look at the wide receivers, Huff, Aguilar, Matthews, I think that's a big reason, and the offensive line rules. That's a big reason this team is failing right now. And you're the personnel man, you're largely responsible for that. So, I mean, the coach is one thing, but I think the GM is Chip Kelly, the GM, is doing himself.
He's taking in a whole lot of responsibility onto himself, and I think it's taken him this year just to kind of adjust to him having all this stuff on his plate individually, because the first 2 years he kind of had Howie Roseman, and now he's running the show himself. So I think maybe he probably thought it would be a little bit easier than it has been up to this point. And so he figures, all right, wow, so this is like a big reality check for me over the offseason. Let me just think about some of the things that I've done. Maybe I overvalue some players who aren't quite as good as I thought they were. So I need a couple of guys to kind of help me just sort of evaluate some more talent, just to get some more talented players onto this team so they can perform better moving forward.
Yeah, and we talked about a receiving core that's not really that great. Talked about more talented players. Let's take a look at Miles Austin's stats, shall we? What a transition there. 12 catches on 28 targets, 212 yards, and 1 lone touchdown. He wasn't even one of the top 4 receivers coming out of camp. I mean, everyone was talking about how good Rasheed Bailey was looking. Of course, Philadelphia product himself. But sure enough, Rasheed Bailey cut now on Jacksonville's practice squad of all places, and Miles Austin making his team and barely holding an NFL roster spot. Fleet, why is Miles Austin on this team? Can you give me that answer?
Maybe Chip Kelly wanted just a kind of a veteran wide receiver presence, just because maybe he'd rather roll the dice with a guy who's been there, done that, than sort of rely on these rookie players, because he already has a couple of young guys at a couple of key spots. So maybe he's wanted some older, more experienced wide receivers, to help young guys like Nelson Aguilar and Jordan Matthews just kind of get accustomed to the game and just how to act as professionals. But unfortunately for us, Miles Austin stinks, and he shouldn't even be on this team. But there's nobody else that you can get. So, what are you going to do? We just have to deal with Miles Austin. We got to keep watching him not make plays.
Jordan, anything to add?
Don't blame Miles Austin. I actually saw him outside of Target one day. Very nice guy. True story. I didn't want to say anything. I didn't know if he was going to make the team at the time. So that's why I wasn't going to be like, yo, tear it up this year. I didn't expect him to get targeted 28 times. That's
so
a
what
little.
Did you say? Hi, you're Miles Austin?
I just didn't say anything. I didn't know if he was going to be on the team, So, but honestly, 28 targets is way too high for a receiver his age. I think he really does know how to play the game. You talk to players, that during their practices, and he runs the route so well, and he's just a great locker room guy. And I'm sure he has a lot of those things. But like I said, I can't blame Miles Austin. He shouldn't be in that position to be relied on so heavily. I don't think that's what he signed up for. I think he was more of a backup if Huff and the younger guys failed. And
really blame the younger guys for their underperformance. Is why they had to rely on Miles Austin even more.
All right, fair enough. And now we are going to go into our prediction poll this week as the Eagles try to rebound and they take on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who kind of are what they are. I'm going with the Eagles, a 17-13 win. Yeah, it's going to be a close one. And yeah, I'm picking Mark Sanchez as my MVP because, to be honest, if the Eagles get the win this week, it's got to be because Sanchez, who of course has been in the system for over a year now, can work the offense well against the Tampa Bay team that, again, we know what they are. We know they're not that great. If he can at least keep this team in somewhat of an offensive rhythm, get a touchdown pass, get a nice amount of passing yards, and try to limit the clueless passes that we know Mark Sanchez can make, the Eagles should hopefully be able to get this win. Fleet, 23-21 is your score, and you've got Jordan Matthews as MVP.
Right. Last season when Mark Sanchez was in, he and Jordan Matthews had a very good connection, and they showed very good chemistry. So I figured that will kind of carry over. And it's kind of hard picking an MVP for this game because all these guys are just so terrible. Yeah. So I guess Jordan Matthews would just be my best option.
And Jordan, going against the grain, picking Tampa Bay, 21-17. Jameis Winston as your MVP. Real quick, why?
Shouldn't be surprised. The Buccaneers are playing pretty decent right now. They do a lot of things well. One of them is stopping the run. Mark Sanchez, if he has to shoulder the load, which he just might if they sell out for the run, you know what to expect.
All right, there's our Eagles predictions for the week. We will be right back. When we come back, Tommy McIntyre will be on desk and we'll talk 76ers. Don't go anywhere. Yeah, that was my fault.
Life is hard. Effective consent is simple. Do not make hookup decisions if you won't remember them. For more information on sexual assault, visit nomore.org.
Welcome back to Sports Talk Philadelphia. Now we're going to talk some 76ers. Have they won yet? No, but we're going to find some bright spots today, and helping us find those bright spots down the end is my associate producer, my partner in crime, Mr. Tommy McIntyre. Thanks for joining us, Tommy.
Absolutely.
Of course, I mean, you're one of the biggest Sixers fans I know, but even you the other night watching the Sixers-Pacer game was kind of tough.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm a Sixers fan for the process of eventually them getting good. I know they're not good now.
Oh, absolutely.
And they're really bad right now.
Yes, but we're going to find those bright spots, and we're going to start by finding those bright spots with, well, the guy they drafted third overall this year, Jahlil Okafor. Let's take a look at his stats: 18.8 points per game, 7.5 rebounds per game, and 1.7 blocks a game. This really is about what we expected from Jahlil, right, Tommy?
I mean, these are great numbers. Obviously, I mean, he's shooting, I think, about 48% from the field right now. He's turned the ball over like 3 times. That's kind of the Sixers' problem right now. Too many turnovers, for sure. Just way too many turnovers. They had like a record yesterday. I guess that would be Wednesday against their last opponent. They really have to figure that out. But Jahlil's been great. I mean, this draft class has been really solid. I think you look at the top 4 or 5 guys outside of actually the guy that everyone wanted here, D'Angelo Russell, hasn't really done as well in Lakers, but. You got guys like Porzingis going off for the Knicks. He's really looking like a stud.
He's looking really good for them
a lot of people
right
thought
now.
he was going to take a little longer to develop, and I think his future looks amazing. The way he can kind of shoot and just get bigger and tougher, that guy's going to be a force. But I think Jahlil's offensive game is really something to admire, and I think if he can continue to work on his free throw shooting and his defensive ability, definitely his rebounding. I mean, he's averaging about 7.5 rebounds right now. He was struggling early on. He was really only getting like 5 rebounds a game early on in the season. But it looks like now he's working on that for sure, his defensive rebound especially. And if he continues that, he's a big piece, a nice piece to have.
All right, yeah, and Fleet, we'll start with you with this real quick too. The other night when the Sixers lost, you saw footage of them walking into the locker room, as you normally do on the Comcast Sportsnet broadcast, and you saw Jahlil Okafor just kind of slug his way into the locker room, like kind of throw himself into the wall a little bit. I mean, obviously he's frustrated with the situation. We all are. So should this really get too much attention, or is this just kind of everyone's just toughing it out?
We'll just kind of look at it from Jahlil's perspective. He came from a very successful program at Duke where he won the national championship, and he's done a lot of winning probably throughout his life in basketball because he's been on some amazing teams. So it's just a hard transition. You know, losing is something that he's not really accustomed to. So the rate that they're losing, we mentioned that, and we all know that they haven't lost a game. I mean, they haven't won a game yet. It's really tough on him, and you know, he looks at himself as probably the best player in the team, and he's probably putting some extra pressure on himself for them not being able to win any ball games.
Yeah, I agree with that. And now, real quick, we'll take a look at a surprise on this Sixers team, TJ McConnell, who's really taken a hold of the point guard position on this struggling Sixers team, to put it mildly. 7.3 points per game, about 7 assists per game, and close to 5 rebounds per game. Tommy, I mean, obviously, we know what TJ McConnell is. You talked about it on the Sixers preview show, but he's doing pretty well for a team that's struggling.
No, I mean, even on the Sixers pregame show, we didn't know who he was. So that was kind of so because we kind of thought like, oh, he looked nice, but I mean, he looked decent in Summer League when he was playing, but you never really thought he was going to be able to do this transition. He was a great point guard in college. Really was great at assist to turnover ratio. He's done that in the NBA for a while now. He's been the 4th highest assist leader in the whole entire league. He's averaging 6.6 now, so he's probably dropped down on the leaderboard. But he's not a scorer. That's not his game. He's only been playing like 28 minutes, so he's done really well considering they need point guard help, and Kendall Marshall and Tony Roten are going to eventually come in December.
All right, so look out for TJ McConnell making moves, and look out for Jahlil Okafor. All right, thank you, Tommy, for coming on for Sixers Talk, albeit brief. And then one more commercial break, and when we come back, we got Zach Granitsky, and we're going to talk some Flyers. So stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Hey, babe, what's up?
Where have you been?
I told you I was in a group project session.
You know I don't like it when you stay out this late.
But I told you
But
before.
I told you to always let me know where you are. And to always answer your phone.
I'm sorry.
You never listen. You know I worry about you. But still, you consistently never do what I say.
No! Stop! Stop!
Domestic abuse can happen to anyone.
If you or someone you know is in an abusive relationship, please call the number below. And remember, it is never the victim's fault.
He's following me. He knows where my next class is.
%31% of female victims stalked by an intimate partner were sexually assaulted by that partner. For more help, visit www.victimsofcrime.org.
And welcome back to Sports Talk Philadelphia. We're rounding out our show today with Flyers. Why? Well, they were the only team that won a game this past week for Philly sports, so why not end on a high note? So, of course, we have Mr. Zach Granitsky on to talk some hockey. Hi, Zach. How you doing?
Hello, I'm doing good.
Good.
Doing good.
So we're going to highlight some bright spots on the Flyers, too, because, of course, they did win the only game in Philly sports this past week, as tough as that is to say. And they've had some bright spots. And let's start with Mr. Jake Voracek, who finally got that elusive first goal of the season the other night against Carolina, the game winner. He's got 8 assists, and you can see there 1 goal on 62 shots on goal. Obviously, you want to see the goals start to come through for Jake, and they're going to come. But, Zach, how much of a relief is it to finally have Jake not only get that first goal, but also just to see the relief on his face after he scored it? His teammates all mobbing him. He's just like, oh, thank goodness, I finally got that goal. How great of a feeling is that?
Oh, I mean, it's great. I mean, it's good to see that it happened before the All-Star break. I wonder if the Sixers are going to win before their All-Star break. But and it's funny because those 8 assists he has, he actually leads the team in assists, and he just got his first goal. But you know, I'm sure we'll see more goals to come. And you know, when I saw him get that first goal in the overtime winner, I was probably just as excited as he was.
I don't know about that. I'm sure he was. Right. I don't know if he was more relieved than excited, but I mean, yeah. I don't know. If I was in Jake Voracek's shoes, like, I may not necessarily show it, but afterwards, I'm like, yeah, I'm pretty excited. I'm going to be just blaring my music. I'm just going to be really happy. Yeah. Fleet, how good is it to see Jake getting that overtime goal and now hopefully just being able to rein everything in and just start to turn things around?
I mean, gee, you finally did your job and scored a goal. I mean, you were the third leading scorer in the NHL last season. But it just speaks of the Flyers overall and just how little production they're getting offensively. So you would hope that this kind of thing would turn things around for Jake Voracek, but you can really only just wait and see. It's a matter of him just continuing to play consistently and scoring some more goals, because the Flyers offense, they certainly need him to start scoring some goals, because just throughout the season, they've just been so unproductive offensively, and it's just been frustrating for goalies, because for Mason and Neuvert, they probably feel some extra pressure on themselves, because if the offense is scoring for you, then it's like, wow, I really need to just try to play as perfect as I can, which kind of backfire on a lot of players. Yeah,
and especially considering, again, we've mentioned this before, but going into the season, it seemed like the offense was going to be the consistent thing about this team, because we knew the defense coming in was a little shaky, but then the offense just starts to struggle, and everyone's thinking, uh-oh, like, how much of a rebuilding process are we actually in for with this team?
That kind of sets you back emotionally, just because you're not able to generate these goals when you go into a season expecting something and it doesn't happen. That can kind of be, shot emotionally.
All right, well, we do have a very nice bright spot on this Flyers defense to talk about, and his name is Shane Gostisbehere, of course, Ghost Bear for anyone who wants to give him that nickname. Scored his first career NHL goal the other night against the Kings, and then this past weekend recorded his first NHL, that should say assist, typo, against the Carolina Hurricanes. We thought he had a goal, but it got deflected in by Wayne Simmons. Zach, we'll start with you. Shane Gostisbehere, there's been a lot of buzz around this guy for a little over a year or so now. Of course, last year he made a cameo appearance in the Flyers season, but stayed down in the AHL. Ron Hextall wanted him to stay down there, get some seasoning. But now, due to an injury to Mark Streit, he's got to be up, and he's making everybody take notice. How exciting is this young prospect for the Flyers defense?
Oh, I mean, it's very, very exciting. I got to see him when I was at the NCAA, the Frozen Four tournament game, because he was on Union and Union played Minnesota, but I've been saying, I want Gostisbehere to come up, and I remember earlier in the season when they were interviewing Hextall said it's a matter of repetition, repetition, repetition. Well, I guess he's got enough repetition in him.
He doesn't have a choice. Mark Streit's hurt.
Yeah.
So, Fleet, real quick, your thoughts on Ghost.
Yeah, so the Flyers' defense overall hasn't been that great over the past couple of years. So if you're able to get a young guy who can produce some offensive production as well, then that's just, kind of a double bonus for the Flyers.
He makes some great moves, and I'm really excited to see him play over these next couple weeks when he's on the main roster. But now it's Fast Five time, of course. We all know the drill. 5 questions for the panelists. Some interesting questions today. Fleet, we're starting with a Phillies question. The Phillies trading for Jeremy Hellickson this past weekend. Low risk, high reward move for a starting pitcher. What do you think of the move?
I mean, it's a solid move. You don't want to go into a season with so many unproven young pitchers. You want somebody who's been in the majors for a couple of years, who kind of establishes himself as a professional. So I think it will bode well for the Phillies, especially if Hellickson can be a good pitcher. We're not expecting him to be Roy Halladay or anything, but we're expecting some decent production and maybe some guidance over these younger pitchers.
Absolutely. Zach, before the Flyers-Kings game this past week, Simone Gagne was honored as he finally officially retired from the NHL after a number of years. Of course, one of the top Flyers, I'd say, in the last 20, 25 years. What's your favorite Simone Gagne moment?
I'd have to say Flyers survive and force Game 5. The OT goal in Game 4 against the Bruins in 2010, I was on the 200 levels, and I saw it for myself, and it was a beautiful.
Oh, I'm sure the roof blew off the place. And, of course, he had the goal to go ahead in Game 7 of that series.
Yep.
Just good memories of good hockey. Anthony Fleet, kind of straying away from sports a little bit, Christmas music and decorations before Thanksgiving, fair or foul?
I would say foul. I mean, give it a break. I mean, Thanksgiving is the 26th, so you still have a whole entire month. But a lot of companies and a lot of different corporations, they just need to market as quickly as possible, just so people can come in and just spend their money.
Yeah, it's all about the money. Of course it is. Zach Granitsky, also straying away from sports. We're not on next week because of Thanksgiving. What's your favorite thing to eat besides turkey on Thanksgiving?
Stuffing. Stuffing is
the
I love
best.
stuffing. Yes.
Hey, simple, effective.
And some mac and cheese.
Oh, stop, but now I'm just hungry. And finally, we go to Anthony Fleet. Of course, like I said, STP has off next week because of Thanksgiving break. Yeah, so will the Sixers win a game by the next time STP airs?
What date is that? Because if it's...
I don't know exactly, but I think it's first week of December.
Maybe, because I think they play the Lakers on either December 1st or December 2nd. So I think they can beat the Lakers. So optimistically speaking, yes. But, probably not, if you want to be realistic.
I don't know. You're kind of down the middle at that point. All right.
Yeah, I'll just say they'll beat the Lakers.
All right.
Yeah.
And there we go. So that does it for the Fast Five. Thank you to Zach. Thank you to Tommy. Thank you to Fleet. And thank you to Jordan thank you to everyone who came on the show today. A lot of guests today, folks. But you can keep up with us on social media, on Facebook, Twitter, email. Full episodes up on YouTube. And, of course, lasalle.edu/LaSalleTV is the website. So for all of my guests on Sports Talk today, and for me, I wish you all a happy Thanksgiving. Again, we're off next week because of the holiday, but enjoy it with your family, and we will be back afterwards in the Christmas season, the true holiday season, and we'll hopefully fill you in on some more wins for Philly teams. So we'll see you later. Have a good Thanksgiving.